Alright, guys, this is the first installment of the Bible study series. We're going to be going into the wisdom text, starting with Job, and I'm approaching it this way because I'm kind of inspired to very much seek out wisdom so that we can better understand the things to come, whether it be now or revelations of the past. So I was starting with Job 1, and I guess I will read until I hit a point, reflect, and then read again. And we might go through a couple chapters, might just go through a couple of verses depending on how things go. And I don't really know how long I want these things to be. God will it. So starting with Job 1. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. That man was blameless, upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. Which is, I think, a very nice and interesting way to start a story and just saying how great somebody is, or how great this man is in terms of stature and status, things that are still utilized today to judge a man by his fortune, by his prosperity. How many kids does he have? How rich is he? How big is his house? And the thing I guess I liked most about this right now is just, even before all that though, which is common metrics for guys, the thing that stands out is the fact that he was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. And I think that's going to be the key thing, where how someone, I guess, can really be defined as a Christian, but as somebody who is favored. Maybe those are like the first defining characteristics that you should really focus on. And maybe, these other things shall come because of those things. And his sons would go and feast in their house, each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So it was when the days of feasting had run their course that Job would send and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to all the number of them. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did regularly, which I think is pretty, it's very interesting to see how, I think this is like the wisdom already, to how proactive this man is into making sure all things are done in accordance to God's will. And just in case, his children may not be doing everything they need to do, he does his part to ensure everything sails forward. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. It's very interesting. I'm reading from the New King James Version. So when the sons of God, which is, I'm assuming, angels, which is why I think Satan's being referenced here as well, which is, I think is very interesting. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where did you come?" The Lord. So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? Have you blessed the work of his hands, and his possession have increased in his land? But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person. And I said, all that he has is in your power. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, which is it in the story. I'm not too sure. Is it the necessity of proving to Satan, or is this more so said the lesson for us? Because it is within good reason, like, oh, he's obedient to you because you give him everything. Why wouldn't he be? And I kind of feel in those same ways. Another reason why I'm starting with wisdoms and starting with Job is because I very much relate to his position, not in terms of material possession, just in terms of happiness and abundance and wealth and my love towards God. So much so that, like I said, no matter what, I pray, like I said, I continue to not ever turn my face from God, just from times being more difficult than they usually are or have to be. And so far so good, right? I mean, once I get things and loot, like I've had things and I've lost already. Once I get more things, I'm assuming the same things will happen, and I won't turn my face away from God. I'll say once we already kind of know about the story. Well, I assume we know, but I should probably take a step back for the people who may not be well versed in the Bible and maybe joining us for the first time. So I guess I won't spoil it, but to know everything that Job went through, it'd be very bold for me to say I could go through everything he went through and still keep my face towards God. So we'll continue into it. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were drinking and eating wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, when the Sabeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another one came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burnt up all the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels, and took them away, yes, and killed the serpents with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the oldest brother's house. And suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck down the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and fell into the ground and worshipped, and said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. Which is, like I said, the ultimate, the pinnacle of what obedience and righteousness is. And this can be, like I said, a very strong topic for a lot of people, strictly because of the fact that to allow Satan to do all these things, just to prove a point, to show that Job would never cast his face away. It can be a very tough pill to swallow. But like I said, I relate to it in a sense because of the fact that, personally speaking, I said I've had a lot of loss, trials and tribulations, and still to understanding it's not that God wants or is it like God wants you to suffer, God wants you to live in havoc. But it's like havoc and suffering are ingrained in this world because of the sin that exists inside of it. So it is because it's not through, I say, the prosperity that God has given is not something that is earned. Like I said, to reiterate the given part, that the suffering and the diligence and the negativity that surrounds creation right now, it exists whether or not God chooses to bless you or not. So to ultimately come to understand that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. I said it's kind of medieval, kind of, very historical, an understanding of, because we, as nowadays, well, in the Western, we don't live with lords anymore. Well, I guess anything abrupt. But I think it's more so the idea of what you have is not your own. Everything has been given. So therefore, your right to it really is more so a mental attachment that you have made. So to see something like this and to say, like, after all things, no matter how you could have had a very strong attachment to something, and to cast no blame, no malice, to not shake your fist at God and to be like, why did you do this to me? From that point, all right, it's very commendable. And to think that we could imitate something very similar to that, or like I said, for that to be like, a standard for humans, I said is very already like way up there compared to like what we already have to deal with when it comes to the losses that we face right now. So I think that was the first chapter, and I said through it, I said I really hope the takeaway more so is the understanding of these things. Now that, like I said, the hand that Satan plays is around us and is apparent, but that is more so the fact that is the nature of the world right now. Whereas the things of the positivity or the gifts that are given should be appreciated. I think so, more so, like, I guess, in like an isolation, where you're not becoming expecting, or hopefully my vocabulary increases as we do this as well, because I forgot all my words. But hopefully you understand that these gifts in isolation should be appreciated, and it should not come at a consequence where now these things are now mandatory. Because, as we all get into other texts as well, like in Romans, the wages of sin is death. So the only thing that we really get to have, or are guaranteed, is the fact that we will pass away soon. So, as morbid or nihilist as it may sound, appreciate what you do have. Understanding can be taken away, which is why a lot of these things are transient. I think that's more so the word I was looking for before, that these things are transient, positive or negative, and ultimately these things will be reconciled in the end. So I think I said we'll do this chapter for now, and we'll see what happens in the next ones. But hopefully you guys can hear me, and hopefully this is something that can touch, maybe something we can talk about.